All right, our group focused on wildfires as a natural disaster. I used to live out in Colorado and worked for the Forest Service researching methods of managing national forests to reduce fire risk. And this photo is actually across the reservoir from the town I used to live in as a wildfire was approaching. So we're going to talk about wildfire using the risk framework of hazard, exposure, and vulnerability. So starting with fire hazard. Fire is an exothermic oxidation reaction requiring oxygen, fuel, and heat. In a wildfire, which is an unplanned fire in a natural area, the oxygen is obviously from the atmosphere, and the fuel is often dead wood, brush, and the like. So for ignition sources, naturally, it's usually lightning that starts wildfires. However, volcanic activity can also start fires naturally. And if a meteorite ever did hit, that's also a source, though very rare. However, there are also a number of anthropogenic sources of fire that can lead to wildfire, whether that is campfires that get out of control, improperly discarded cigarettes, fireworks, mechanical failures, even arson that can trigger wildfires. So the question naturally is whether wildfires are a natural disaster or anthropogenic. And in fact, 95% or somewhere between 85% and 95%, depending on whether you're looking at California or the whole country, fires are started by human causes. Lightning is the most common natural cause, but most wildfires are actually human caused. But fires are still a natural part of many ecosystems, especially out west. On the left here is a fire cycle of a natural forest. So the forest can come through, clear out dead material, open up the canopy for new growth. And on the right, this is an example of a species of pine whose pine cone requires fire in order for the cones to open and release the seeds. So even though most fires are currently started by humans, it still is very much a natural phenomenon. Human activity has exacerbated the risk of fire in that a natural fire regime goes through relatively quickly and more frequently than it does now, clearing out a lot of the fuel within the forest. Suppressing fire allows for that fuel to build up. So when a fire does ignite, it burns in the same area longer and causes more damage. And so this photo on the right here, the ecologically managed forest, is some of that research I was talking about, looking at ways to reduce fuel naturally so that fires burn similar to how they would under a more natural fire regime. Switching to exposure and vulnerability, we're actually increasing our exposure to wildfire by developing in what's called the wildland-urban interface, or the WUI. Wildfires definitionally take place in wildlands and not in dense urban centers. And so as we continue to develop in a more sprawling fashion, we're increasing the number of homes and households that are in close proximity to fire. And actually around 40% of new homes are built in the WUI, thereby increasing our exposure. Not all development in the WUI is equally vulnerable. We've been doing a lot of research into fire-resistant housing design, and homeowners themselves can implement a fire-resilient landscaping strategy with no vegetation close to the house to serve as a fire break should a fire come nearby. Additionally, the government is monitoring wildfires and has warning and evacuation plans in place. If you've ever been to a Forest Service, you've probably seen a sign like this pointing out the fire danger. And most governments have a ready, set, go framework with different levels of warnings leading up to an eventual evacuation. One vulnerability with evacuations, though, is often fires take place in remote areas with relatively sparse road networks. So this is an example, Kenwood, California. It's in a valley with mountains on either side of it, so there are only a few roads in and out. And this particular fire burned across all of the roads. So that's something to keep in mind as an increased vulnerability, even with evacuation planning. So with that, I will turn it over to look at mapping of past fires.
So it's important to understand the mechanism behind wildfire spread. And I think this diagram by USDA captures the complex interaction between the factors pretty well. So at first, we have the fuel, which are the flammable objects such as dry leaves and tree logs. Of course, when this object catches fires, it has a big potential to spread, and that is also thanks to the weather. As you know, if you have a strong wind, this will accelerate the spread over the area. And the last component is the topography, which will then dictate the movement of the spreads. And the complex interaction between these three makes it very difficult for us to model the uncertainty in the spread. Another thing is that there's a byproduct of smoke from wildfires. Here we could see the spread of an aerosol, which was captured from the satellite Sentinel-5P. And this is the spread of aerosol in 2020 from the August Lightning Complex wildfire, which is actually the largest wildfire in California's history. And as you can see here from the small red dots are the locations of the fire. There are multiple locations during this time, and you can see the aerosol coming out of this region and start moving towards the east and reaching also the East Coast. So we can also then start seeing the trend of wildfire, especially in the United States. There's a significant increase in wildfire occurrence since the 1980s. As you can see also, the prevalence of human-caused wildfire is quite significant than the natural wildfire. This is also shown by, if we look at the number of acres burned, there's a very significant areas been burned from human-caused wildfires compared to the natural cause. But of course, there's also the unknown ones that is still haven't been determined. All right, so then we can map this wildfire using satellite images, and to show the examples, we took the two largest wildfire in California histories. On the left, we have the August Lightning Complex in 2020, which took about 3 months to contain and takes over about 1 million acres. And then this was also followed in the next year by the Dixie wildfire in 2021, which took about almost 1 million acres as well. And again, this shows the importance of understanding the mechanism behind wildfire and modeling it so that we can create resiliency through in such events. All right, so that's pretty much it, and yeah, thank you.